Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and Denuvo. I know that there are some people that defend its use, but I am not one of those people. Denuvo is a DRM system that, despite how easy it's become to crack for some people, is still one of, if not the most potent DRM tools in the industry right now. However, Bethesda and all of their innate Bethesda-ness pulled a bit of a bait and switch with the Denuvo DRM, but implemented it in such a manner that rendered it completely pointless within a period of 24 hours. But let's get into the particulars before I start ranting about Denuvo too much. I also have a pound of flesh that needs to be taken out of Bethesda as well. As always, links to any sources used will be in the description down below. Rage 2, developed by id Software and Avalanche Studios, is being published by Bethesda and was released on May 14th and was available for pre-order for several months prior to that, and everything seemed pretty normal for the game. That is, until about 24 hours before the game launched. On May 13th, Bethesda decided to go ahead and add the Denuvo DRM and a Bethesda.net account requirement to the game on Steam. It was also worth noting that Bethesda added Denuvo only to the Steam version of the game, where the Bethesda Launcher version of the game remained Denuvo free. This was seen by many gamers, myself included, to be a bit of a slap in the face for those wishing to purchase the game on Steam, and was seen as a sort of a bait and switch for those that had pre-ordered the game, but might not have done so had they been aware that Denuvo would be included. But owing to the fact that Denuvo was included only in the Steam version of the game, the Bethesda Launcher version was cracked by gaming pirates in the first 24 hours, and as a result of that, Bethesda removed Denuvo from the Steam version in a hotfix released on the 16th, 2 days after the game's initial launch. Also, it is worth noting in this instance, as is evidenced by this video created by Joker Productions, that while the Steam version of Rage 2 did take significantly longer time to load than the Bethesda version, the frame rate and performance of the game did not seem to be negatively impacted in this instance. According to his tests, the average frame rate difference was within decimal points of a single frame per second difference, which is well within a margin of error, meaning that in this instance at least, Denuvo was implemented correctly and it wasn't breaking anything. And that's basically all there is for the facts to run through on this particular story. Not a whole lot to go off of there. Now, some people did ask me or make an assumption that what Bethesda was doing here was a form of false advertising and a bait and switch in the legal sense of the term. And I have to say that while that was an absolutely crummy thing for Bethesda to pull, it wasn't illegal in any way. Bait and switch and false advertising surrounds the product itself, which would be the game in this case, and not the digital rights management system used to protect its copyright. Now, as I said, I am no fan of Denuvo myself. I've seen it cause massive issues in some games over the years, and I've also seen it have no effect whatsoever. It has been proven that if Denuvo is implemented correctly, it doesn't have any effect at all. The difficulty is when it is implemented incorrectly or when it's rushed. Take Assassin's Creed Origins, for example. That was an instance of DRM gone wrong, where Ubisoft, in their infinite wisdom, decided to layer DRM in an effort to protect the game from piracy using both Denuvo and VM Protect on top of their Ubisoft Uplay. Essentially DRM to protect the DRM. Both of those components were not implemented correctly and ended up completely tanking the game's performance on PC. And that was one instance where we could absolutely point to the DRM being present as being the cause of the severe performance issues. One of the most prevalent reasons why we know this is that those that had made use of the cracked versions of the game did not experience the problems faced by those that had obtained the game through legitimate means. The difficulty faced by developers and publishers that choose to make use of Denuvo is that their customers are expected to rely on an unknown quantity in relation to their game. They have to trust that the DRM is implemented correctly in order to ensure that their gameplay experience isn't adversely affected, as it was with the Assassin's Creed Origins and Rise, a game that I was able to verify myself ran significantly better once the Denuvo DRM was removed. I'm also not a fan of Bethesda sneaking in the announcement of Denuvo at the last minute. Now, I can see the desire to not have their pre-order sales negatively impacted, but that is a very predatory stance to take. Now, you should always and absolutely make certain that your customers have all of the information necessary at their fingertips prior to making a decision on whether or not to purchase your game, and the extremely dodgy prospect of Denuvo is information that people should be aware of, as it can and will influence buying decisions. Granted, everything's fine now. Denuvo's been removed because Bethesda pulled a Bethesda and completely botched the launch of their game yet again, and everyone can rest easy knowing that they can now play a mediocre game Denuvo free. And it is a mediocre game, make no mistake. It attempts the same open-world concept as Mad Max, but it does so in the most shallow of fashion imaginable. The graphics are subpar for a $60 title, the story is virtually non-existent, the open-world aspects of the game are shallow, dull, and extremely repetitive and samey. To my mind, there are only two good things that can be said about the game. The first is that the gunplay is exceptionally good, and the second is that the game seems to be relatively bug-free. But for the first portion, the gunplay, it is not enough to carry the entire game. It's a good skeleton with the gunplay that you could tell as being at least partially lifted from Doom, but there's not enough there with the rest of the game to be able to carry it forward. And as for the stability, well, they win no bonus points from me with that. A stable release may seem like the exception rather than the rule these days, but it should still be absolutely expected and required with every game that is released. And as this is not by any means a comprehensive review of the game, I won't provide a full breakdown, but as I have played about half the game, I can say the story is short and uninspired as well, and overall I would consider the game to be mediocre at best. To make use of your archaic grading systems, I would give it a flat 4 or 5 out of 10, not that that necessarily means much of anything at all. But, that said, Bethesda tried to do Steam players dirty, and thankfully they managed to screw up yet again. It is a case of sauce for the goose is sauce for the gander. Implementing Denuvo only on one distribution platform was ultimately short-sighted and pointless, as it would anger your Steam player base, especially considering they decided to let people know a mere 24 hours before the game's launch, deceiving those that pre-ordered the game, at least those that cared about Denuvo's existence, and it guaranteed that the game would get cracked anyways. So putting Denuvo out there to begin with on only one distribution platform was just stupid. So there we have it, my thoughts on Bethesda's Denuvo screw-up and a review of Rage 2 that is about as long as the game's story. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to toss me a like because it really does help the algorithm gods, and consider subscribing if you're new to the channel. If you would wish to support the channel even further, there are links down in the description below. But once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.